Hi all, electrical engineer, Igor Ekimov, is with you. Today we will look at the P2 Pro thermal imager from Infiray. Using this thermal imager, I discovered the amazing world of thermal vision, which I will talk about in this video. This little one, despite its size, has professional characteristics. Its resolution is 256 by 192 pixels and its sensitivity is 0.04 degrees. It has an all-metal body and the smallest size for a thermal imager in its class. Its thickness is just under 1 centimeter and weighs 9 grams. Personally, I put this thermal imager in my wallet in a case and carried it with me while I was preparing the video. The thermal imager was released in the middle price segment, accessible to the average user. In the video we will see how to use this thermal imager, and how it is useful both for an electrician and a home handyman, as well as for an ordinary person in everyday life. I left a link to the device in the description. If you are interested in devices for the home handyman, then subscribe to the channel and press the bell. Special thanks for your likes and reposts. What this device can be useful for. Firstly, it is thermal insulation of rooms. The device easily detects heat leaks through the floor, ceiling, walls, doors and windows of rooms. Secondly, you can find out the location of heated floors, cold and hot pipes in the wall, and the location of loaded electrical wiring. Thirdly, you can use the dark as a night vision device, both indoors and outdoors. Fourthly, it can be used for security, since it detects people and animals well in the dark. Fifthly, it can be used to search for runaway pets. The device helps you see them even in complete darkness. Sixthly, it can be used to troubleshoot electronics printed circuit boards. It detects increased heating of faulty elements. Seventhly, to search for blockages in heating radiators, and to search for leaks in water-heated floors. Eighth, such a device will help you better navigate the roadway in poor visibility conditions, since people, animals and heated cars are clearly visible. But a thermal imaging system for cars has already been developed for this purpose. In fact, it is a fast thermal imaging camera that uses the power and processing capabilities of the smartphone's processor. Despite the resolution and performance, the device has low consumption of 250 milliwatts. With such consumption, it can work with a smartphone from 5 to 7 hours without recharging. The camera comes with a macro lens that allows you to study small objects. For example, the heating of electronic board elements during operation. The manufacturer of this thermal imager deals with thermal imaging devices professionally. It also produces thermal imagers for night hunting, search and rescue operations, and has developed a thermal imaging system for driving a car. This thermal imager has a Eurotest certificate and several other certificates. So the quality of this device is beyond doubt. Let's see what a thermal imager can actually do. Now we are looking at how to find blockages in heating radiators. To do this, cool the battery and start the heating. And we see how the battery warms up. If there were congestion, they would be immediately visible. It is useless to look for congestion on an already warmed up battery, since places where there is no circulation are warmed up due to the thermal conductivity of the metal. By the same principle, it is better to detect the location of the heated floor at the moment of warming up. Then the warm floor is displayed with more contrast, since the heated and unheated areas will differ greatly in temperature. Please note that the thermal imager automatically adjusted the image sharpness. I switched the light palettes, so you can see that they display the battery differently. In different cases, examination with a thermal imager is better to choose your own palette. I prefer the black and white and blue and red palette. I use the rest of the palettes as needed. At the same time, people who have never dealt with thermal imagers are confused by the image of the thermal imager. People are spoiled by HD, Full HD, 4K video resolutions. For example, The video that I am currently recording is 1920 by 1080 pixels. And the image of the thermal imager is only 256 by 192 pixels. Moreover, this is a fairly high resolution for a thermal imager. Devices with higher resolution are much more expensive. For example, a professional thermal imager with a resolution of 640 by 480 pixels costs almost 750,000 rubles. The price-quality ratio of our device is optimal. In addition, our device improves picture quality due to digital image processing. I sped up the video, since the actual warming up of the battery takes almost 20 minutes. With this camera you can easily navigate in the dark, both at home and outdoors. This allows you to walk relatively safely in the dark. An animal or person cannot hide behind bushes, as it literally glows in the dark for a thermal imager. I have seen cases where some animal snorts or rustles in the bushes. As a rule, a flashlight does not allow you to see who it is, but a thermal imager will help me with this. Especially in autumn, winter and spring, when there are no leaves on the bushes. An interesting interpretation of the saying. It's hard to see a dark cat in a dark room, especially if it's no longer there. The thermal imager easily finds pets, even if they are hidden in dark places. Dogs, cats and most other animals are warm-blooded, and the heat they emit is easily detected by a thermal imager. An interesting observation. If an animal was sitting somewhere and left, then for some time a heat trace will remain at the place where it was sitting. Using a thermal imager, you can take a warm selfie by going to the mirror. In fact, the device detects heat rays from both the object itself and reflected rays, as in our case from a mirror. This should be taken into account when analyzing the resulting image. The heat signature can help monitor children who don't want to go to bed. If they walked around the room in your absence, they will leave heat traces in other places except the bed, which can be detected by the device. And it is useless for children to pretend that they are sleeping, covered with a blanket. Using a thermal imager you can find those elements of the electrical network that are heating up. Here, for example, is a small shield. You can see which machines heat up the most. Those machines that have a high temperature carry a large load through them. If there is a poor contact in a switchboard or junction box, then the thermal imager will immediately show this as the place of poor contact becomes very hot. By finding such places and correcting them, you can prevent a fire. You can also use a thermal imager to locate wiring. If the cable is well loaded, the place where it runs in the wall will warm up and can be detected by a thermal imager. As you can see, I loaded the wiring with a heater, and the location of the wire is visible. Although the location of the wire differs in temperature from neighboring areas by only 0.1 degrees. In the same way, you can look for hot and cold pipes in the walls. Here is an example of an image of a house through a thermal imager lens. It can be seen that heat is lost from the bottom and top of the walls at the joints of the floors. But here is the paneled entrance door, which is not insulated. You can literally see that where the panels are thin, heat escapes. Here is the same door, only from the inside. And here is the ceiling, where bridges of cold are visible. And here is the floor on which there is linoleum. Nails are literally visible through the linoleum, like bridges of cold. This information will allow you to better insulate the house, so as not to waste additional energy on heating the house. And this is what the street looks like at night through a thermal imager. As you can see, the road is quite clearly visible. Cars literally glow, especially pedestrians and animals. Using the device you can navigate literally in complete darkness. True, in a thermal imager you will not see potholes on the road, and what is shown on road signs. That is, it can be used as an additional device for orientation on the road. And now the thermal imager is beginning to be used as an additional camera to make driving easier in the dark and in poor visibility conditions. The peculiarity of the device is that the image in complete darkness and in light do not differ much, but only on the condition that the lighting is not done with thermal light sources, such as the sun's rays. In sunny weather, rising currents of warm air interfere with the study of the object. Plus, at the research objects, the sun's rays form heat spots. So, it is better to use a thermal imager in cloudy weather, and at night, or indoors. This thermal vision is used for security and surveillance of objects, as it easily detects people and animals in complete darkness. If you use a lens, you can examine the electrical board for overheating of its elements. So I put a macro lens on the camera. We are looking at the board of a working 12 to 18 volt converter. This is what the board looks like. We look at the temperature on the board and on the radiators. This is what the light bulbs look like. We even see the spiral of the light bulb, although the temperature of the spiral is incorrect, since the surface of the glass is reflective. As you can see, all elements are clearly visible. We enable video recording so that we can later analyze the temperature of the board elements. If desired, you can turn on professional mode and mark the necessary elements using dots and areas. But we'll talk about this later. Please note that the SMD elements are clearly visible, especially those elements that get very hot. The temperature of the microcircuit itself is 42 degrees. If we repair a board, then usually the faulty elements are those that get very hot. This macro lens is brought close to the board. I have a distance of 5 centimeters. There are thermal imaging kits with a tripod to make examining PCBs easier. But for most cases, this thermal imager is sufficient. The device comes in such a beautiful package. It can be used as a gift. The packaging looks quite presentable. These are the inscriptions on the back of the box. Let's open it. There is an envelope here, we'll see it later. This is how the thermal imager and the macro lens for it are packaged. And here is the thermal imager itself. It connects to the Type-C port of the smartphone. There is a type of device for iPhone, which differs only in the connector. The thermal imager shows a heat map of the measured objects. This filter lens is used to analyze smaller objects. We have already seen that it allows you to measure the temperature of even small SMD elements of a printed circuit board. The macro lens has a magnet. Using it, it is placed on a thermal imager. This is how you get a macro lens that can be closed with a lid. There is a Type-C extension cord through which you can connect a thermal imaging camera. Here is the cord itself, half a meter long. It can be used to take measurements in hard-to-reach places. Let's see what's in the envelope. Let's open it. There is a small pouch for the thermal imager. I used it when I carried a thermal imager in my wallet. Despite this, he was not damaged in any way. Here is a passport, the most valuable thing in which is this QR code, with which you can download the application to your smartphone. And a warranty card. It is better to check the warranty conditions in your region with the seller. The link to it is in the description. Now let's see how to work with the device. There is a QR code in the instructions. We scan it and install the application. Alternatively, the app can be found on Google Play by searching for P2 Pro. Here we have an application. I have an Update button because I have it installed. And you click Install. So, we installed the application. Don't forget to enable OTG. It won't work without it. We turn on the thermal imager. As you can see, the application loaded itself. If you don't get the same image, then you should take out the camera and put it back in. The thermal imager can be oriented both vertically and horizontally. I now oriented it horizontally. You see the laptop turned on. On the bottom right is the album where all the photos and videos are saved. Just above is a button with which you can take a video or photo. If we press now, she will take a photo. If we switch, we can turn on the video. But during the video process, we can also take photos, or we can turn off the video. At the top you can turn on the color palette. As you can see, there are different types of display here. Personally, I like two palettes. This one is black and white and red and blue. Let's leave it black and white. Please note that all inscriptions are in Russian. On the top left is the device calibration button. It should be pressed if you think that the device readings should be corrected. Just below, under this button, you can turn on the smartphone camera. Turn it off. And even lower are the settings. Let's click the settings button. The settings are convenient to use only in a vertical position. The highest setting is professional temperature measurement. Let's take a look at it. Turn it on. Let's go to the image. We have an additional panel. From this we can select 3 separate points to measure. Here I press. Here, let's say, 1 point, a second point and a third point. And the temperature at these points is displayed on our screen. We can also mark lines. Here's 1, 2, 3. We display the average, maximum and minimum temperature for each line. We can also select areas. Here we click, make one area, a second area and a third area. And the thermal imager also determines the average, maximum and minimum temperature values for each area. If we now take a photo, then along with the image we save all the temperature values, which can be displayed in the form of a table. We click the trash can and all our constructions are deleted. Of particular interest is the isotherm, which can be turned on and off. It can only be enabled for color palettes. Turn on the color palette and turn on the isotherm. It shows how the color of the image relates to temperature. There is a castle nearby. You can press it. It opens and we can adjust the temperature range in which we are interested. They moved it here. They moved it here. And we only painted over those places between temperatures of 34.4 degrees and 29.4 degrees. We press the lock and the image is restored. Turn off the isotherm. Click the Settings button. Click the Advanced Image Settings button. There is a switch for High Quality Image. I leave it on. In this case, additional image processing occurs, increasing its sharpness and quality. We exit these settings. The next setting is the temperature setting. Here we can select units of measurement: Celsius, Fahrenheit and Kelvin. I leave degrees Celsius. Here we can set an alarm. At the same time, we turn on the engine and set the maximum and minimum temperatures at which the alarm should sound. Let's go out. Click General Provisions. Click Language Settings. Here we can select the language. It turns on the same as in the phone system, or forced Chinese, English or Russian. Leave, according to the system. Let's go out. You can disable the Infiray watermark here, but I leave it enabled. Let's go out. And here is some background information. Here is information about the company itself. Here are the operating instructions for the thermal imager. An interesting fact is that the thermal imager sensor operates in the range of 12 mkm. According to this, the thermal imager should work well even in fog, rain and smoke. If there is an opportunity, I will check it and write down a short. I exit the settings. Turn off professional mode and exit settings. There is another settings panel here, which is indicated by 2 small squares on the right. Click. In the middle you can turn the temperature display on and off. Here we have turned off the temperature display. They turned it on again. This displays the temperature in the middle of the screen, as well as the lowest and highest temperature areas. Open the panel. Click Rotate Image. Here you can rotate the image by 90, 180 or 270 degrees, as well as mirror it. Here we go into the correction of variables, where you can select one of the preset modes, or program your own mode by selecting the temperature of the environment or the distance to the target. This setting is necessary to increase the accuracy of the instrument readings. A heat ray loses energy if it travels a long distance. For example, in this photo the temperature readings of the sky are not correct, since the distance to it is too great. Use a thermal imager to measure the temperature of objects at short distances, preferably up to 5 meters. And at the same time, set the distance to the object with this setting. I set the ambient temperature, and the device uses it as a reference. This increases the accuracy of temperature measurement. It should also be taken into account that when measuring temperature, the device measures not only the thermal radiation of an object, but also the radiation reflected from it. It must be taken into account that unpainted metals can reflect thermal energy from the outside, and the temperature readings from a thermal imager will be incorrect. This should also be taken into account when examining any reflective surfaces. Here we can select the measurement mode. If you choose high image quality, then the thermal imager operates in the range from -20 to 170 degrees. And the thermogram in this range will be more detailed. You can select a wide range and the thermal imager will operate from -20 to 550 degrees. I do not recommend using auto switching. I leave high image quality. Here is an example of how the device works. Here is a gas stove burner in high quality. As you can see, the temperature is artificially limited from above. And here is the same burner in an expanded range. The measurement accuracy is plus or minus 2 degrees. The ambient temperature for the device to operate must be in the range from -10 to 55 degrees. For the thermal imager electronics to work correctly, we can also adjust the image settings. Click and we can adjust the brightness of the picture, the contrast of the picture. If desired, by clicking the rounded arrow we can leave the average values. This is such a small but necessary thing. This is one of the best representatives in the middle price segment. This thermal imager has excellent characteristics, so it is worth the money. It can help where any other device cannot. Plus, it will help save serious money on heating, as it will detect heat leaks in the room. It does not take up space in the toolbox. Put it in a case in your purse, and you can go to the site. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. You can also ask them to the manufacturer. I'll leave the link in the description. Share the video with those who are interested. Subscribe to the channel and press the bell so you don't miss new videos. Click like and see you in new and old videos.